But overall, I agree with Sean, the guest who was on Tim Pool's show. He creates content on YouTube under Actual Justice Warrior if you want to check out his content. But what he says there is totally true.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about what is going on in the city of San Francisco, because as the New York Post reports, Dean Preston, a member of their Board of Supervisors, which acts as their city council, similar to the Dalton cases that we've been covering, has decided to propose a law to address the issues with grocery stores who are dealing with rampant shoplifting, causing them to close, and of course, that legislation doesn't address the thieves. It allows residents to sue the grocery stores for closing because they're racist. Yes, I'm dead serious about this, and we got to talk about it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that Saturday, April 27th, I will be in Austin, Texas at the Vulcan Gas Company for Minds Fest. Link to tickets, top of the description. Promo code AJW for 20% off.
Today, San Francisco Supervisor Dean Preston also demanding the only grocery store in the city's Fillmore neighborhood stop its plans to close down.
We first told you about this last week. The Safeway on Webster Street in the Fillmore has been in business for 40 years. Its owners say the location will be closing.
So we've actually discussed this particular Safeway and actually this particular closing controversy on this channel before, and the heart of that discussion was essentially that they were experiencing theft, they were going to close, they were also being bought up by a developer to build affordable housing, and residents of San Francisco were absolutely enraged by this. They talked about how they were essentially entitled to a grocery store. They demanded that the government do something about this. As if the government is in charge of Safeway, it was a rather odd situation. However, I did give the caveat when I was covering that story way back when, that because the city is involved in the affordable housing thing, they could in fact delay it, and Safeway ended up delaying their closure in response to the public outcry and in response to the San Francisco mayor. However, you never make a deal with the devil. You never sign that contract in the blood ink, because you know what? The San Francisco government is obviously going to betray you, and a perfect example of one of these betrayers is Supervisor Dean Preston, because when this whole thing broke down, he decided that he was going to propose a piece of legislation, and when I explain to you this legislation, you're kind of going to lose your mind, because you're going to think it's insanely stupid, because what he wants to do is cause grocery stores to require a 6-month waiting period before they close, find a new substitute grocer to take their place, and allow residents to sue the grocery store if they do not comply with this.
In March, Supervisor Preston introduced a resolution today to try to stop that.
Corporate Sarah Stinson talked with the supervisor, and she joins us now live in the city. Sarah?
Yeah, Supervisor Dean Preston says shutting down this Safeway will be harmful to some of the most vulnerable groups in the Fillmore district, as this location, it not only serves as a grocery store, but also a bank and pharmacy.
Now, they call this the Grocery Protection Act, which is actually based on a 1984 proposal that was passed by the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, because they've been that insane for that long, but then vetoed by Mayor Dianne Feinstein, to give you an idea of how old this is, and it comes amid a rash of retail theft fueled by the city's drug and homelessness crisis that have led to several business closures. Now, there are examples of different grocery stores closing, like Whole Foods, which closed its Market Street location after there were 568 emergency calls logged during a 13-month period due to incidents such as vagrants throwing food, yelling, fighting, and attempting to defecate on the floor. According to the New York Times, at least 14 arrests were made at that location, which is kind of the heart of the problem, because you have 568 incidents, but only 14 arrests. Now, Preston actually introduced this law way back when in January, but the reason that I think it's making the news now is because it's actually gaining in support. There are now at least 4 Board of Supervisors members that are behind it, and while that might sound like only a few people, you have to understand that the Board of Supervisors only has 11 members, so once they get to 6, that is an absolute majority, and guess what? This actually passes, and then it goes to the desk of London Breed. Now, I actually think think, to her credit, London Breed would probably veto this particular legislation because London Breed is scared about her political future, and one of the things that she's been doing is attempting to crack down on all the different various problems that people like me talk about on this channel, because contrary to what the left wing would say, they are in fact real problems. It is a serious issue. Having all these different stores that are already doing business in the very expensive San Francisco closing due to the additional theft that they've allowed due to the fact that they have these open air drug markets, all these crazy homeless people, and they don't prosecute anyone for anything, has led to a disaster scenario for London Breed. And it's not just grocery stores. We talked about mega hotel chains that had already paid off half the balance of their loan, just walking away from it because tourism is essentially dead in the city of San Francisco compared to other places post-pandemic. And in fact, conventions are pulling out and all sorts of other additional problems. But what I find amazing about this particular case is that the grocery store is being assessed all of the blame for this particular situation, even though they've already taken various insane looking security precautions, like all the glass that you see in these local news segments covering up everything. Now, this new ordinance is pitched as very moderate because it would exempt supermarkets and grocery stores that close because of a natural disaster or business circumstances that aren't reasonably foreseeable. However, every other business in this category would have to provide 6 months notice. Now, that might sound like a moderate position, but let's be honest. You saying, okay, you know what? You don't need 6 months notice if your entire business gets consumed by an earthquake or something like that. But in other cases, not only do you have to provide notice, but you have to actively, in good faith, seek to find a replacement, even though nobody would want to replace a business under these circumstances. I mean, just imagine it. You open up in San Francisco, or you're looking to open up in any city, and San Francisco is one of your options. In every city, you assess the numbers, you try to do business there, but you know if it doesn't work out, you're going to close, you're definitely going to lose money, but that will be pretty much the end of it. Well, not in San Francisco. In the city of San Francisco, they've decided that the rules work like this. You open up a business there, and you know what? You're totally screwed over if things don't work out. They're not going to enforce the law. They're not going to help you in any possible way. Guess what? Sad day for you. You have to provide the city notice, and then you have to find another sucker to take your place. Otherwise, we're going to hold you up, and also we're going to have everyday residents sue you.
Safeway officials announced last week they sold the property to a company that will turn it into housing and commercial retail.
It was pretty shocking to community members.
Right away, Supervisor Dean Preston got to work on a resolution demanding the grocery store stay open until the property developer breaks ground.
It is not a good option to just shut down the community's only grocery store so that it can sit vacant for months or years. It just doesn't benefit anybody.
Preston says the closure of Safeway would be devastating as the next closest location is a mile away on Market Street.
This is a major slap in the face to the Black community, in the Fillmore, to Japantown right next door.
Because I don't know if you're aware of this, there's a lot of Black people in the area. There's an Asian neighborhood that kind of adjoins the area, and that makes you an evil white racist filled with evil white racism because you decided that the theft that is overwhelming your store and driving your store out of business is actually driving you out of business, and therefore you need to close the store. How dare you do that? Dean Preston, Democratic Socialist representative on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, knows better on how to run your business than you, and you're just going to have to take it. Now, on top of that, if a store closes without providing adequate notice to the Board of Supervisors, so you actually have to provide notice to the legislature, as well as the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, those affected by the closure would be entitled to sue for damages according to the language of the proposed ordinance. Like I said, the bill would require them to find a good faith way to replace the grocery store and find workable solutions to keep groceries available at that location. And Dean Preston is actually quoted as saying, "It was a good idea in 1984, and it's an even better idea now." No, absolutely not. This was a terrible idea in 1984. Even Dianne Feinstein was able to see that, and it's an even worse idea now. This will obviously disincentivize opening businesses in San Francisco. If you are looking at the prospect of maybe theft driving you out of business, you might try to close sooner or announce the closure sooner, because you're in a circumstance where if things really get bad, if you feel like you're maybe close to being driven out of business, it is better for you to pull the plug immediately, never open in that location in the first place. So the net result of this will be that grocery stores will close even faster. Now, I talk about all the time on this channel how these are in fact progressive laws that are causing these problems. And a lot of people try to obfuscate that on the left. They say it's not real progressivism and whatnot. But what else do you call this? You have Dean Preston, Democratic socialist in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, proposing a law that changes a private business into a public service, adds all these additional restrictions with no connection to any kind of economic reality. This is a disaster in every possible way. If you actually want grocery stores to be open in the city of San Francisco, what you need to do is not allow them to be looted out of business by the criminal residents of the city of San Francisco. You need some law and order. And by the way, I've talked about on this channel so many different times how crime actually drives poverty, not the other way around. And this is a perfect example of this. Now, I know there have been recent statistics that kind of overstate or overblow organized retail theft. And to be clear, unorganized retail theft is a huge problem on its own. There's no need to inflate it, but some very notable instances of these organized theft operations have been present in the city of San Francisco. Remember, not too long ago on this channel, I actually did a video where I responded to Mark Rober actually putting tracking devices in items that were left in cars to be stolen, and it turns out that those tracking devices showed the items moving to a known fencing operation. In fact, it was a fencing operation that we actually covered on the channel a year prior. That's how well known it was to the world, and it should have been known to the San Francisco Police Department. We also did a story on a bus that resulted in the repossession by police of about $8 million worth of items, mostly laundry detergent, deodorant, non-perishables that were in a warehouse, and these were stolen from the various different CVS's. And the reason they steal those particular items is because they're non-perishables. You could sell them to this operation, and essentially they get put back out on the street in these little flea market style tables and sold to the population for 100% profit. This is what they're experiencing in the city of San Francisco. This is why all the stores are closing. And rather than address the cause of that particular situation, people like Dean Preston will do anything to avoid doing so.
We are calling for legislation that would make it clear under San Francisco law that a security guard cannot draw their weapon to protect property. And right now, unfortunately, our local law actually says that security guards can unholster their weapon and draw a gun to protect a person or property. And it shouldn't be that way.
Now, as if you didn't despise Dean Preston's ideology and his proposal and his desire to implement this radical progressivism into policy in the city of San Francisco right now in this moment, I'm about to make it that much worse. Because let's say you actually want to stay open. Let's say you want to hire security guards in order to protect your stuff. Well, guess what? Dean Preston, even before that, actually proposed a law to prevent your security guards from engaging with the criminals because it's just property, bro. They're just Aladdins, that they're innocent angels, and we should never, ever, in any case ever, do anything about the criminals at all whatsoever. And by the way, this was in response to the Banco Brown case, I believe, and I actually covered that particular case. And in that case, Banco Brown did end up fighting with the security guard. The security guard drew his gun, and Banco Brown stepped in what was described as an aggressive way. It looked like that on the surveillance video, although to be fair, it's more of an ambiguous shooting than other ones that I've seen, and Banco Brown was shot for their trouble. So that particular case of that career criminal, multiple time thief, fighting with the security guard, possibly about to rush the security guard, made Dean Preston say, you know what? These are innocent angel Aladdins. Never again are we going to allow the criminal to be negatively impacted by this particular situation. So we're banning it. We're stopping it. We're not allowing it. And you're just going to have to deal with it if you're the business owner. So this guy will not protect these stores. This guy will not allow these stores to protect themselves. And on top of that, he wants to embolden average everyday citizens to sue these stores if they try to close because they can't protect themselves and they can't rely on the city of San Francisco to protect them. So obviously this is a declaration of war on the businesses of the city of San Francisco. And just based on this proposal alone, I would consider closing if I were in business in groceries in the city of San Francisco. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. Maybe you think that this is actually genius. Maybe you think that unintended consequences don't even really exist, and this will work out perfectly fine. It's going swimmingly in the city of San Francisco. That might be your opinion, and if it is, let me know down in the comments below.
But overall, I agree with Sean. He creates content on YouTube under Actual Justice Warrior if you want to check out his content. But what he says there is totally true.
Now, as usual, if you liked the video, you know what? You show me by leaving a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you know what? You subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on my social medias, you know what you should do? Follow me on all my social medias. If you want to support me, then you do so with the support links linked in the description. This has been me talking about an insane proposal out of the city of San Francisco. Till next time.